Thank you for listening to The Path to Authenticity. My name's Tom Gentry. I think of this show as the opposite of small talk. You'll hear real conversations with real people who know who they are. We talk about what makes them who they are, how they became who they are, and how we might become truer expressions of who we are.
I'm Holly Homan, and this is The Path to Authenticity.
If this is your first time here, thanks for checking it out. If not, thanks for coming back. I'm Tom Gentry, and this is The Path to Authenticity. This is the first of 2 episodes with a therapist in Noblesville, Indiana named Holly Homan. And Holly manages and works out of a practice called JRNY Counseling. This might be the first interview I've done with a Hoosier since moving back here to Indiana. One of the first professional relationships I developed since getting back. And just someone who's really nice to chat with. I related a lot to what she was talking about, and it actually gave me an opportunity to talk a lot about what I've had to work through over the years. So here you go. I hope you enjoy it. Holly Homan.
Emerged from slumber, insect form.
So we met back in May at the practice where you work, which is called JRNY Counseling, right? In Noblesville, Indiana. So why don't you tell the listener what you do exactly?
Well, I am the co-owner of the practice, so I still do individual family therapy. But some of my responsibilities now have become kind of, like the mom of the practice. So I make sure the Christmas tree goes up and I handle the bills and all those infrastructure things that need to happen. But what I found the most interesting that I did not anticipate was that I've really become like the cheerleader for our culture and to take care of our staff. And so I find that has been almost the most fulfilling thing that I just never got to do when I worked at any other agency.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because if you haven't had any experience working in this realm, in the helping professions, you really don't understand the extent to which the staff really needs support from each other.
Yes.
Laughter helps a lot.
Yes.
And it's also, I think, one of the things that's, to me, has always felt like, I guess, kind of a fringe benefit of doing this kind of work is that if you're in a healthy organization, then you have healthy people to connect with.
Yeah, that's
and the
right.
Connections tend to be very satisfying. So you're the ringleader of that at JRNY Counseling.
Well, I certainly try to be.
That's great.
When we moved, we were constantly waiting for feedback that we hadn't done something right, or we had forgotten a form, or, it just took such a long time. Melanie and I call it institutional trauma now, and we see it with every counselor that comes on board. they're like, I'm just waiting for like the email. It's like, you didn't do this right. I'm like, you're not going to get that from me. You are a person. You are in here, taking on people's defense mechanisms, helping them fight for their life. I'm here for you just as much as you're caring for the people who we are treating. And we never got that. Even if you have a healthy culture with your coworkers, I find that it's difficult to find that level of support and value from the organization. Almost all of our staff have been through a period of about 6 months of what we call institutional trauma.
I like that expression, and I have experienced it. And I was, having a conversation about this with somebody close to me just in the last week or so. I've had the opportunity to work for a couple different organizations where that quality of support existed.
Oh.
And one was Hazelden. I think I told you I'd started my career working for Hazelden, and that was lots of support, lots of training. It's about as corporate as I've ever experienced in my life, but plenty of time off, plenty of opportunity to process interactions with clients with supervision. So that's critical. It was really fantastic. And then the next one was a couple jobs later. After I'd been to one place where it was a smaller business, and at the tippity top, they weren't as healthy. And I was like a middle manager. So I was able to set the tone for the people under my wings, but it was pretty tough for me. I had to filter out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I went to the next place, and they just treated me like gold. And I went, I'd say more than a year, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for them to tell me that I was doing something wrong or wasn't good enough, or for them to realize I wasn't as good as they thought I was, or they acted like I was, whatever,
Yes.
And finally, I had the CEO approach me one day, and I thought he was going to ask me to help him fill a leadership position because someone had resigned. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, I can help him. And he proceeded to ask me if I would apply for it. And I didn't feel qualified, and I was astounded that he asked me to. And then I talked to his, the guy directly under him a couple hours later, and he said, "Hey, did you talk to Jim?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Did you talk about what I think you talked about?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "So what do you think?" And I said, "I just can't believe he thinks of me that way." And you know what he said?
Yeah.
"Why not?"
Yeah.
And it was like, just blew my mind. It really opened my eyes to the fact that I didn't see myself accurately.
Yes.
And that I really needed to work on that. I had some distortions that were based on my history.
Yeah.
Hey folks, Tom here. I want to take a moment to ask you to subscribe to my Substack publication. The original purpose for creating this podcast was to cultivate an audience for my writing, and I'm publishing now more than ever. I'm sharing free content every week with commentary on personal growth, emotional literacy, men's issues, relationships, and more, as well as audio content for paid subscribers. Please check it out by clicking the link in the show notes or by visiting tgentry@substack.com. I'm a recovering guy and been abstinent from alcohol for a long time. And in the last 10 years or so have worked a lot on family of origin. The big stuff, the big adult child stuff.
Yes.
And one of the things I have realized over the years, and I talk about with the people I work with, is that we get imprinted with these messages from the people around us as children. And a lot of times the ones that, and I want to say our families usually mean the best, and they're doing the best that they can and all that. But still, you know, we don't all come equipped with the emotional tools that we need to be healthy and to flourish. So the messages that I got, and some of them were abusive, I didn't need the messenger for that long, because sooner or later I took the message and I started giving it to myself. I didn't need them at all anymore. And I had to stop that. I had to recognize that I was doing it and then stop it. So, I imagine that in the work that you do with your clients and also with your staff, I mean, that's something that we have to overcome, and that I imagine you spend a fair amount of time guiding people through, right?
Yeah. And I just love it. I love to see the staff remember who they are or see themselves for the first time. And then all the stuff that comes out of that.
Which speaks to a point that I think we can easily lose sight of in this world of helping people. And that's that the point of all this is to be who we are.
That's right.
And to get back to who we originally were in the first place. And that also, one of the things that speaks to is my belief that, you know, there's nothing wrong with us.
That's right.
You know, we were fine when we came into this world, and the world does a number on us, and then we got to figure out how to get back to who we were in the first place.
That's so true.
So what led you to do this kind of work?
Well, I'm the middle child my dad's a pastor. So I think I was born into listening and refereeing and managing things before I even knew what it was called. My family went through quite a lot of trauma. My mom had a significant attack when she was at work by one of her students, and then she never worked again. She had chronic PTSD, chronic depression. My family just fell apart. And so I think that there was a part of me that just was like, I've gone through this. I can make it. I made it through the other side, and I need to help the people who are coming behind me. And it was interesting, you know, all of us, every person in my family fell apart in a different way. And to, you know, be able to wrap my head around that and do the work around that, but then also help other people understand that one significant event changes things in a ripple way. And then the relational damage that happens as a result of those ways that people fall apart, like what you said, can really do a number. And I just feel like people should not have to do those things by themselves. And so it really drove me to be in this field.
Well, and this brings me to a point which I like to make, is that, you know, a lot of times the gifts that we have for the world are rooted in our wounds.
That's exactly right.
And the way I like to think of it is that, you know, if we tend to our wounds, then they can become sacred.
Yeah. I always think about those Japanese bowls that are broken and they put them back together with the gold.
Mm-hmm.
That's really how I think about surviving an event and then holding the space for the next person so that they don't have to get as broken maybe, or they get healed faster. It's such a beautiful thing to be able to give and so difficult to find.
So how did being the child of a pastor affect your personal development?
I think it really impacted me in a lot of positive ways, and then also, helped really kind of feed my natural cynicism in the way that I view the world. So I met a lot of beautiful people in the churches that we served. And I saw a great deal of how people can show up for each other and love each other. I also learned to be very resilient. We moved around every 3 years. We kind of, were very reliant on our little family. And we certainly learned to live in poverty, but on the love of Jesus, which is what we're expected to do. But on the flip side of that, I also learned that, when you're the first family, so to speak, which is what my mother would call us, you sit in the front row and you put on your face. You're the first family. No one's going to listen to Dad if he knows he's like Dad and not the preacher. And so I learned early on to have this duality where internally I know all these bad things are happening, but externally we're the perfect family. And you don't do anything to threaten the livelihood. As poor as we are, this is what we have. And I also learned that church is a business. My father worked at the church. He was paid by the church, the politics of the church. In our humanity, we kind of sometimes ruin the idea of church. And so I learned those things. But I do think one of the most amazing things that I learned about this, and I talk about this quite a lot, because, my father was trying to raise and support his family. We bounced around to some different denominations. And so I easily learned how to pick up the rules of a congregation, or like, this is how they see it, or this is how they believe, or this is their rule around that. And I really loved that experience, because then it taught me to, not everybody is the same. You don't have to believe all the same things. It also served me in a negative way later in life, because I could always justify whatever I wanted, because I knew that people had different rules for different things, right?
Yeah.
But it serves me well, I think, because it taught me how to read people very quickly, how to read a room, how to fit in, and how to speak to people in the language that they speak. And so I think, there's always pros and cons about that.
Well, my guess is that moving from one denomination to another, it was probably helpful in a sense, because I know for me, a lot of the scars that I have around religion are sort of rooted in the rigidity of the beliefs and the judgment of, oh, we're doing it the right way and they're all doing it the wrong way.
Yes.
Which is, to me, in my set of spiritual beliefs, the opposite of what God wants from us, to separate ourselves from other people.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a lot of looking down the nose.
Yes.
And also a lot of judgment,
Yeah.
So, I grew up in a Catholic home where my mom and dad, I'm the youngest of 8. My mom and dad stopped going to church when I was 4 or 5 years old. And there was all this stuff around that. Meanwhile, I have siblings who already have kids and are married, and they're still going to church.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think one of the things that really was hard for me is that I was kind of Catholic and I kind of wasn't. And,
yeah,
as a kid, you just want to be like everybody else. You just want to belong.
Yeah.
So that was really lonely.
Yeah. But it was very lonely for me too, because I could see that everybody just made up the rules as they went. And so what was real? Which one was right?
Right.
And it leaves you in limbo.
So what has this led you to in your adult life in terms of spiritual practice?
I mean, I think I go in and out of it. I think I've definitely embraced the higher power idea. I think what has been the most helpful to me is that I stopped chasing a higher power. And I just said, you know what, Holly, if you just show up and do what you're called to do, the messages that you're supposed to receive, the love, compassion, that will be sent to you. And if you don't get it the first time, another message will come because your higher power knows that you're stubborn and probably very distracted. And so the people that I meet, the things that I'm like, ooh, that'll be fun. You know, my impulsiveness, my gregariousness, that will help put me in the places where I'm supposed to get what I need. That ability to stop chasing something and to allow the idea that I will receive the love and the information that I need to have has helped me with my spirituality more than anything else.
You know, in the 12 steps, it talks about having had a spiritual awakening. It doesn't say having become spiritual after having not ever been spiritual. It says we wake up.
That's right.
We wake up. And, you know, so when I hear people who I work with talk about, well, I got to get this spirituality thing. I'm not really spiritual. I might not always say it because it might not be the right thing to say at the time, but my first thought is, you're spiritual. You just don't know it yet. We're all already spiritual. We just have to learn how to connect with it and tap into it.
We just have to remember.
Right. Right. And for me, a lot of times that's just about, I like to find ways to like, I have a morning practice where I do some prayer and some other stuff and I do little things to make it sacred, to honor it, you know?
That's right.
And just recognize it.
That's it. That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
You know, you can go through your day and these messages are coming for you and we're so busy that we don't pick up on them. But if you are mindful and you are looking, then they hit you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and for me, learning that and learning how to practice that has given me a lot of satisfaction in life that I probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Like it wouldn't have come from just having faith.
Exactly. Yes, that's right.
It's different. It's different when your eyes are open and, you know, something clicks. And like a big example for me is, I know I told you that I moved back to Indiana a few months ago, back in March of 2021. And that was after losing my mom in November. Sorry, March of 2022, I moved here, but I lost my mom in November of 2021. And being here for her funeral, being around my family, my sisters especially, and feeling that, what it felt like. I just had this, what am I doing? Why am I not here? I should be here. And I remember having a conversation with my oldest brother about it. He's like the first one I talked to about coming back. And it's funny because he moved back to our hometown after my dad died. But, you know, I mean, of course he wanted me back, but I mean, one of the things he said was, well, you know, don't make a rash decision.
I don't know. Have they met us?
Well, and I thought, you know, my thought was, well, you know, I don't need to make a decision. The decision's already been made. I know it's already been made. And I'm, you know, because intuition, man, when you get it and you know it, you don't have to question it. You just have to follow it.
That's right. And it looks rash to everyone else.
It does. It does. I think it kind of blew their minds a little bit. And you know, I talked to my best friend from high school last week. And it had been several months. It was before I decided to move back. And I told him I was back here. What? Like he couldn't believe it. And I never thought I'd move back here.
Yeah. What did you feel when was it comfort? Was it longing? Was it connection? What did it feel like?
Well, it felt like, the first word that comes to mind is love.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've had a lot of stuff going on in my life, since COVID hit, where, you know, I've been a bachelor since 2013. Most of that time single, not in a relationship. Done a lot of work on myself with relationships. And I lived somewhere where I didn't have much family at all. Mm-hmm. The family I did have, I wasn't seeing very much.
Yeah.
And what it felt like was I was enveloped in love when I was here.
Yeah.
And it was one of those, what it really was I deserve this.
Yeah.
Which I almost got choked up just having said, because it took me a long time to get to the point where I really believed that about myself, you know, enough to trust that I'm doing the right thing, you know, because it was a tough decision. I'm a dad too. I have a son who's in high school in Florida and had to talk through it with him. But I dotted all my I's and crossed all my T's and determined that this was the right decision for me right now.
Yeah.
And I am at peace with it. But, you know, this is, you know, when we grow and we do these things that are best for us, we can't be too caught up in what other people think about it. I had to be confident enough in myself and to trust myself enough to just not even think about that part of it, you know? You know what mattered to me? My therapist was proud of me. You know?
I'm so glad. It sounds like you had a good therapist.
I have a great therapist. Yeah. Yeah.
So happy to hear that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'm a big fan. It's one of the reasons why we're talking. I wish more people.
Everybody.
Yeah, and you know. Thanks for listening to the show. Please subscribe, leave a rating or a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. You can learn more about my other podcasts by visiting thepathtooauthenticity.com or by clicking the link in the show notes. Music is by the band Punk Rock Opera, used under a Creative Commons license and with permission from the artist. The show is produced by me, Tom Gentry. You can find more of my work on Substack, including a podcast only available to paid subscribers. So again, thanks for listening. Keep coming back. Be nice.
did great, honey.